Hey, do you have some nasty old paneling on a wall that you just really want to cover up to make it look like drywall? Well, then this is a video for you. So I'm going to show you how to fix walls that are like wood paneling that look really outdated and turn them into looking like, exactly like drywall. So anyways, that's what this video is on. I remember a long time ago, I used to be a drywaller and painter, and I did this to a whole rental house I lived in. Next time the landlord came over, he said, wow, it looks so nice, and the next day he put it up for sale. So don't do this if you're in a rental unit, just your own place. But anyhow, you can see this stuff's been painted before, so previous owners here have just like painted the stuff. It's real 70s here, everything's dark wood. So anyways, I'll show you this closer. So here's the wall. I mean, it looks better than just being, wood paneling, but you can see there's big gouges in it. They didn't fix any of these gouges before they painted it. And so here's a huge one right here. You can see big gouges taken out. So I mean, it looks better, but it still doesn't look that great. This is a seam right here. It started, I can't know if I can get that close, but it started cracking and stuff, so I'm going to fix those. So the thing is, on these seams, if you don't tape them, I mean, you're eventually going to get a crack there. I mean, you could go through and put like a little bead of caulk on it or something. Maybe that would help, but I'm just going to do this the right way. I'm going to put some tape on it. I use paper tape just because it's thinner than the other mesh stuff. The closer you can get it to the wall, the less of a hump you're going to have to cover up. So I'm going to do that. Since this has already been painted a long time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these sanding blocks right here, and I'm going to go along and just sand this wall. I mean, this paint's really hard on it, so I'm going to sand it where I'm going to do these seams right here, but not the whole thing, and just to help rough it up a little. And so if you don't have anything on your paneling, it's like dark wood or whatever, I mean, you could either try one of these and just sand the whole thing so it's not shiny, and then try painting it. Sometimes you get the color bleeding through. I don't know. Otherwise, I would primer it, get you a bunch of primer. The only thing is you're going to have to primer the wall and then wait like a while for the paint to cure, I would wait like at least a week or two, whatever it says to cure, because you don't want to put a bunch of wet stuff on this, paint that's not cure. But anyways, I'm good with this old paint on here. Like I said, I'm going to rough it up. Not very wide, because the tape's probably about this wide, and then the mud is going to be about probably 6 inches or so to cover it up, so it's not going to be a lot of area. I need to get that sanded down. And the corner up there, I mean, it's got a gap and everything, and what would be best is probably to tape that as well, but that's a lot of work for to tape that, because then you're going to have your mud coming out onto the ceiling, then it's going to cover up your texture that's already there, and then trying to match this texture right here would be hard. So that'd be a nightmare. So I'm just going to put a bead of caulk along there, and then hopefully if it shrinks, or the house settles anymore or whatever, and it gets a crack, you won't really see it. So I'm going to do that at the top, and probably I'll look at the corners. I might even do it in the corners, put a little tiny bead of caulk in there. So I'm going to get on tearing this baseboard out too, so I can just start. I'm going to go, here's my plan, is first just to tape all these seams. It's like every 4 feet or whatever. So I'm going to tape these seams, and then after those dry, I'm going to skim coat everything with mud, which is really just getting it in these grooves. And so I'm going to put mud on there. I'm going to scrape it, real tight, because you don't want a lot of mud on here. You just want to cover up these little grooves. So anyways, let's plan what I'm going to do. You can see this baseboard down here is pretty nasty looking. So I'm going to rip that out too, so I can smooth it all, and then I'll put on new baseboard afterwards. After I get all that done, if I take a few coats, probably 2 or 3 coats to cover up these grooves, and then we'll get on to sanding and texturing it. And for the drywall, the taping, it really doesn't take much for tools. I mean, this is all I've got to do stuff. This is for mixing it. Here's my tape. This is really just a 6-inch putty knife is all I'm going to use for the taping. That's plenty good enough. And then I got a tray with some all-purpose joint compound. You know, I guess I've always called it just drywall mud. There's all kinds of different kinds, so this is just all-purpose. You can also get taping mud that might have a little extra glue in it for holding tape on. So, you know, you could also use that taping mud for texturing. I mean, it's all pretty much the same stuff, so I'm not too picky on my mud. So that's what I'm going to use on the walls today. Hey, I just used a rag and wiped it off after I sanded it, and it's real light sanding. It's not like I'm sanding hard or anything, just to get some grooves in there, help it stick better. If you primered it, you probably don't need to sand, just, you know, go right over the primer, but again, let it probably cure for a little while. Now I'm going to mix up some mud. I'll show you how to mix this mud up. And the thing is, when you're doing some taping, with this paper tape, you always want your tape to be wet, right? You don't want to just use this mud straight out of the box to do your taping, because it's not wet enough. It's not going to really get into the paper tape well. And so it's important to mix your mud with some water, get it watered down a little bit, not, you know, a huge amount, but you want your paper to be wet when you put it on there. And otherwise, if it's all dry, you'll get bubbles kind of in your paper tape, or the edges will start coming up. So none of that's good. So we want to water it down first. Now, of course, on the watering down the mud, you don't want to really water down the mud when you're just like skim coating stuff to fill in holes and stuff, because the more water you add, the more it's going to shrink and stuff. So, you know, this is just for the taping. The regular filling in these grooves, I'm not gonna mix it with any water. But you can see straight out of the box, I mean, this stuff it's pretty hard, and you definitely do not want to tape with this. If I'm gonna use it, you can see all these bubbles and it looks rough. So I would take this stuff with just a tiny bit of water and stir it up, you know, and get it a little more smooth looking. But, you know, basically you can stir it up a little and it's good to go on the wall. Okay, so I got a little water in here, so I'm going to start, you know, stirring this up. And usually I just go in a figure 8 kind of motion. So you want to start out slow with the water. You can see it now, it's like, you know, more like toothpaste or something. So it's getting a lot better. I'm going to still add a little bit more water, get a little bit looser in this. Okay, now this looks about good. It's kind of soupy, not really soupy, but it's you know, thick, but it'll still fall off this, but it's you know, a lot wetter than it was originally. So this is about good consistency. What I do if I'm starting to tape and it doesn't look like the paper tape is really getting wet, then I'll put a little more water in here, or after a little time you'll need to add a little more water. Okay, here we go. So I got this mud I just threw up here real fast. I got my paper tape going. It's got a little groove in there, so you want that, you know, the groove kind of going in towards the wall. So the groove on the outside goes in, and the outie goes towards the wall. And then as I throw this mud on here, I put a little smush in the mud where the center is, so I know about where to put the tape. Okay, now what I'm gonna do, I got this just sticking to the wall right now. I'm gonna take more of this mud here, the wet mud. I'm gonna put it over the top of this tape here and kind of get it all wet on the outside too. And then I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna hold the top there and kind of smush out the mud with my fingers so there's not a hump there. And then I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna squeeze out as much mud as I can squeeze out, because you want this to be as flat as the wall as you can get it. So that's the plan here. Well, I forgot it was just up here. Anyways, so there we go. I got the tape in there. I got the extra mud on there. I squeezed out as much as possible. Because if the tape's sticking out far, you know, then it's going to be like you'll have to, you know, float it out more to cover up the seam. So if it's flat, it'll make it way easier in the future. You can maybe get by with 1 or 2 more coats on this. And then I always squeeze the mud out at the top here because you'll get a little hump going on, but that's basically it for the taping. Hey, and on your last little sweep on taping and stuff, wiping off the mud. Be sure you don't leave any like little humps anywhere, or any little specks of mud that are out. You want everything to be smooth every coat. So when I'm filling this stuff in too, the grooves in, I'm going to be skim coating it, trying to take off as much mud as possible, and leaving it smooth. If you leave like little grooves in somewhere where it's got like little things sticking out, when you go to do your next coat on it, those little pieces are going to break off, and then it's going to get in your mud, and then you're going to get all these streaks in your mud and stuff. So it's a pain in the butt. So every coat, just try to make everything real smooth, have no mud sticking out anywhere. Hey, so now I'm going to start skim coating this stuff with filling these grooves. Now I switched to a different drywall kind of knife, but if you've only got that 6-inch one, that's fine. This is like probably 8-inch. But so I'm just taking some of this mud. I left it really thick. I didn't water it down. I just stirred it a lot. So anyways, and you just kind of, I'm gonna slap this stuff up there. That's kind of why I wanted a bigger one. And then I'm gonna scrape it off there. Man, you really need to scrape it off good. Don't leave any kind of, any kind of ripples. There's a ripple right there. You kind of want everything to be smooth. And then you really want to use the least amount of mud as possible. And you don't want to goop it on there and try to smooth everything out. Just scrape it down, knowing you're going to need at least two coats on here. Maybe 2 coats might do it. You might need a 3rd coat. I would think even on the taping, probably 2 coats mud is good. So I'll skim coat this wall, fill in these holes. I'll let it dry, and then I'll do another coat over top of it. That'll be good for those. I'll put another coat on these taped sections too. Again, this is probably good enough for me on this thing. There's no bad walls. If you put this against a wall and it goes doo doo doo, like the wall sticks out, then you need to float it out a lot on these seams to make it look better. But these walls are perfectly straight and everything, so it should be pretty easy. Alright, so that was yesterday, and so today I'm going to put another coat on this stuff. It's all really dry. It's looking pretty good so far. I think I was going to show you some stuff like when I was talking about like don't leave little blobs and stuff. I don't know if you can see this, but like, I mean, this stuff will, when you're trying to skim coat, it's going to get in your mud and it's going to make a mess. So you just want to go along and clean up anywhere where there's little things poking out, and get those out of the way first, and then you'll be ready for your next coat. Oh, and on these taped parts right here, you can see that there's, I didn't squeeze all the mud out of this little center piece here, and there's a little bit of a hump. So whenever you got like a little hump, then you're going to have to put on kind of more mud to fill in around it to make it smooth looking. But all in all, it looks pretty good. Oh, and you can see there's a little piece right section here I forgot to fill in. But you can see it's not like there's a ton of mud on it. It's really just really light layer on there. And I'll get on the next layer. Okay, and here's my tape right here, and so I would normally just go over it like once like this with tape in the middle, but I got a groove here and a groove here, so I'm gonna put mud here and I'm gonna go along like this and then like this. And since I've got the ripple kind of right in the middle of my tape sometimes, if you go in the middle both sides, then it's gonna build up on the outside of the ripple. It'll all work out. Okay, and again on this coat, we're gonna you're gonna push pretty hard and try to scrape all this off you can, and then get it really smooth on the next couple of runs there. There we go. Hey, so I got my 2 coats on here. It's all looking pretty good. I might just put one more coat on these tape seams. If I run my finger along it, I can feel like a little line there. So might put another coat on just the tape sections. But you still need to go over this and look at everything kind of closely, because, you know, something like, I don't know if you can see it right here, but there's this edge, and you can feel like a little edge there. And you're gonna see like straight lines like this even after you texture. So anyways, before you texture everything, you want to use one of these sanding blocks here, and you really just go over that really lightly, just to get rid of that edge there. See, so now it's all smooth looking. You won't see that edge. If there's any kind of ripples like this, I usually go along and just get those out real quick. So look at all your edges where you got mud, and make sure they're all, you know, smoothed out and everything. Then it'll turn out pretty good. Here's some, you know, little, I don't know if you can see those little lines in the drywall. So just whip those out like nothing. With these little blocks, you got to get one. Okay, on the caulking up here, I just wanted to show you something real quick. It's filling this gap here. Trying not to goop much in there. I'm trying to use as little as possible. And then once you get done with that, always take your little pinky, or however big your finger is, and just go along there, and it kind of smooths it all out. So that's just a little trick to make it look better. Then I go along if I miss a little spot. And there you go. Hey, and I finally got it all taped off here with plastic. You know, this stuff, like I'm using a regular texture gun, and it blows so much air around and stuff. I always like to get it, you know, really secured down with tape. Otherwise, the stuff starts flying around. I even put some little extra blocks. I had extra piece of wood to hold down the edges on when it starts blowing. Anyway, you could do this with those cans. It would just take 1,000,000 cans. It would probably, I don't know, maybe 6 cans of the big cans, you know. But it'd be a lot of work. But anyhow, so I'm going to start mixing up my mud. Oh, and the pattern with this gun here, I mean, it's like a huge, you know, 3-foot pattern or something, so it's not like you can spray exact spots, you know. It's going to be a big circle, and when I'm spraying, I'm kind of going in a, you know, circle kind of pattern, and so it gets a lot of spray on everything here. but no worries at all. It comes off with some water. And so I'm going to be mixing some mud up here for the texture gun, and it's going to be, you know, the directions say like thick paint. So, you know, that's what I kind of think of when I mix the stuff up, kind of like a, you know, you got to thin it down quite a bit with water. But I'll get to it. So this is what I'm going to go with right here. It's kind of, you know, it falls through the cracks of this pretty easily. So that's what I'm going with for mud, and I got my just regular hopper right here. Just a cheap one, you know, from Home Depot. It works pretty good. I think I got the smallest kind of tip on it, and it says to set the air for like 25 pounds, and I'm gonna spray it kind of on here as like a test area first. And so I'm gonna, you know, spray it here and see what, you know, 25-30 pounds looks like, and then start spraying this. And you gotta be careful when you spray this plastic will start getting heavy and it'll fall. So I usually put a little more tape on this edge, because it's better to fall this way than to fall right on the newly sprayed mud. So I hope to do this pretty quick and then take down the stuff before it falls. Hey, so that's it. It was like, you know, it's like, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes of texturing. I think it took, you know, probably an hour and a half to mask everything off, and it's about 10 minutes or something. But yeah, it's all done. It looks pretty good. Just like, I don't know if you can get a close up here of this, but so when all this dries and I get it painted, you know, it'll all look more uniform. But so that's what it looks like. Kind of, some of them are kind of big blobs, but I was using a smaller nozzle. Maybe I need like a little higher pressure. I did about it on 30 pounds, maybe up to 35-40 pounds, because when I did it like at 25, like I said, it was seeming like it was big blobs coming out of there, like not enough pressure. So yeah, you definitely got to play around with it. But maybe I'll come back and show you how it looks when it's painted. But anyhow, that's how you do it. I've done this before. It holds up really nice. It's just looks like regular drywall. So rather than ripping off stuff, you know, maybe you got drywall underneath it. This didn't have any underneath it, so it's a easy way to kind of cover it up, but it does make, you know, quite a mess always. But good thing this stuff just wipes up with water. But and then when you got this mud dries, and you can paint it. But just remember, like you know, water paint is just like kind of water, you know, water-based paint, and so it's just gonna wipe the texture down. So if you got, you know, little blobs, if you like go over it with a cheap brush, like a lot of times it'll kind of start wearing down the texture. So you want to get a decent brush, you know, when you paint. But later on. Hey, I thought I'd show you how it turned out after I painted it. I got a couple coats of it was Dutch Boy paint, and it was actually a standard color, so I just went down to Fred Meyer's, picked up a can of the exact same color, and so I didn't have to get it matched or anything. But with a couple coats on here, it's all looking pretty nice. I don't know how well you can see it, but it all turned out good.